Oftentimes we think of history in terms of dates and places and events, but history can also be studied by thinking about the individuals, the personalities, and the relationships that help to shape those events. And we're here today at the Michael Collins ambush site, and we're going to talk just briefly about Collins and Éamon de Valera. So Collins was a Corkman, born not so far from here. He went over to London at the age of 15 to be a British civil servant, living with his sister. We often like to think of the influence of Irish America on events here in Ireland, but Michael Collins fell in with the London Irish, and it was where he developed his Republican tendencies. He came back here in 1916, just before the Rising. Éamon de Valera, on the other hand, was born in Brooklyn to an Irish mother and a somewhat mysterious Spanish father, where he got the unique non-Irish name de Valera. Raised by his grandparents here in Ireland, became an ardent student of the Irish language, a mathematician by trade, and got involved in the Republican movement. Easter Monday, 1916, in Dublin, Éamon de Valera was the commandant of IRA forces at Boland's Mills. Michael Collins was a young aide-de-camp at the GPO, setting up barricades. They were both taken after the Rising. Of course, de Valera, very famously the last of the commanders to follow the surrender order of Pierce, gained him some notoriety as the last to surrender. And as the executions were taking place, de Valera was on the list. He was not executed, and it may have been that his status as an American citizen spared him, or it may have been that the executions had run their course and the British were already realizing that the effect of the executions may not have been what they had wanted. But in any event, we talked on the bus about the treaty. Collins went to London, negotiated with Winston Churchill, came back with the treaty that included the loyalty oath. It included partition. De Valera and the so-called anti-treaty forces didn't like that. They pulled out of the Dáil. We had the Civil War. So that brings us to August 22nd, 1922. Michael Collins, leading the Free State forces, is coming through this locale. Word gets out that he's here. He may have felt that he was safe because he was in Cork. He was a Corkman. This was sort of his home territory. But an ambush was laid by the anti-treaty forces, and very near to this spot, Collins was hit in the firefight that followed. Ultimately taken to Dublin, died. At a funeral that involved 500,000 people thronging the streets. He's buried at Glastonbury Cemetery, where we will visit. But Collins and de Valera essentially shaped Irish politics for a century to come. The Free Staters ultimately became the Fine Gael party. De Valera, after losing the Civil War, eventually went political again, came to ground, took the loyalty oath, which he said he never would, said he was basically sort of had his fingers crossed and didn't really mean it. But he created a new political party in 1926, the Fianna Fáil party, which have been the two major parties in Irish politics for a century. So for 100 years in Irish politics, you were either on the Michael Collins Free State pro-treaty side or the Éamon de Valera anti-treaty side. And then it's interesting, the old Sinn Fein party that both men had emerged from, of course it was split during the Civil War, sort of fell by the wayside as these two new political parties were created and became really marginal in the Republic, almost non-existent. Up in the six counties, of course, it ultimately became the leading nationalist party. In 1969, in the Troubles, when there was a split between the official IRA and the provisional IRA, there was also that split between the official Sinn Fein party and provisional Sinn Fein. So the Sinn Fein party of today is what was the provisional Sinn Fein party, now just the only Sinn Fein party in existence. And I think most of us are aware that their political fortunes have changed over the years. They became more dominant in the north of Ireland and even became a force here in the Republic. And so in the 2020 election, when Sinn Fein surprised everyone by doing so well, it's interesting that Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael said we would never be in a coalition together. They were the two opposing parties. Sinn Fein was resurgent here in the Republic. Lo and behold, we have a coalition government between the two historic opposing parties from the Civil War. And as part of that coalition, the two parties would split and share time as Taoiseach. So traditionally, when Fianna Fáil folks are in office, the portrait of Michael Collins is not in the Taoiseach's office. And the Fianna Fáil Collins goes back, but in 2020, as part of this new coalition, the request was made, why don't you leave the Collins photo in the office? And so now, we might say after 100 years, de Valera, who was known as the long fella, and Michael Collins, who was known as the big fella, are together again, at least on the wall of the Taoiseach's office.